I started writing them because I was asking questions. And so every book I would write, I would ask a question. Like I was saying with ambition, I said, why are some people like this? What is happening in their brains? And I think we all know what I'm talking about. And then, that question grew into, well, how do people grow? How can somebody adjust their brain chemistry? And, when I'm writing The Jump, the idea for The Jump came because of the huge, uptick in basically celebrity trainer abuse stories. And I mean specifically abuse of the horse or abuse in an athletic setting. How do you go from a person who loves a horse to a person who does these things? And then we had some interesting discussions on adulting with horses where I realized that when I was a teenager, I was totally guilty of treating my horse like he was a sentient motorcycle. I loved him more than anything, but I did not take his feelings into account. And so I wanted to look at both of those things. I wanted to say, what makes a trainer turn to abusive methods? And where is that moment between childhood and adulthood where we stop treating our horses as toys and we start empathizing with them and treating them like true partners? And I think some people never cross that line. And I think maybe some abuse comes from that lack of awareness. It's almost like a peaked in high school kind of situation where they just never move on from senior year. And you've got to get past your teens. And you've really got to get past your 20s. I hate you. But those are the questions. And I think if I have these questions, I know other people have these. And so when they read my books, I hope that they will see me looking for touch points where we can say, this is a way things could change, or this is what makes a person like this. And then they look at their world and they are hoping to find some solutions in their neck of the woods, in their equestrian community, or in their barn, or in their discipline. What can change? Or do I need to leave? Do I need to go do something else? Is this the bad place? And I also hope that's really dumb. I hope they have fun because I do write the books to be really readable, and I don't sit down to write a lesson. And I hope nobody took away from that Natalie is writing morality plays, because I swear I'm not. But that is where the ideas come from, is from me looking at stuff and going, I wonder why it's like that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Stable Exchange podcast. On today's episode, we are chatting with Natalie Keller Reinert, who most of you probably know from the over 30 titles she has written as an equestrian author. And soon enough, on March 24th, you guys will all get to read and enjoy her new book called The Jump. And you can also see her on tour, hopefully at a city near you. I will put all of her upcoming tour dates in the episode show notes. Natalie has had quite the journey on her way to becoming the author that we all know her as today. In this episode, she takes us through those early days running her own barn and working many different jobs in the horse industry, all the way through getting an incredible opportunity to partner with Flatiron Books, and her exciting partnership with Amazon Studios to turn some of her most notable characters and series into a show on Amazon. I'm so excited for you all to listen to Natalie's ups, downs, pivots, challenges, struggles, and exciting moments that have all led her to this incredible pinnacle of her career that we see her at today. I hope you all enjoy. So, Natalie, I am so excited for our listeners to hear your story today, because when I reflect back on what I know already of your story, your career has been that of consistency, perseverance, never giving up on yourself. You have had a long road to get to the point where you're at now. And I think that's something that's really important for people to remember and keep in mind, because I think we really live in this world of instant gratification now. A lot of times people think you can just post a reel or put out a TikTok, you're going to go viral and be an instant success. But what we've learned in your story is you really have to believe in yourself through the entire journey to ultimately get to where you are. So I'm very excited for people to hear that from you. And I would love to go back a little bit before you were the author that people know you as now. I know you grew up loving horses from a very early age, and you have had many, many roles in the horse industry, more than some people may even realize. And I think for so many equestrians, A lot of times horses start out as a hobby, but then we might have this little light bulb moment where we realize they could be more and potentially be something that we can build a career on. So I would love for you to talk us through maybe that light bulb moment that you had, or if there was a specific moment in time that made you think, I could actually make a career of doing something with horses.
Oh, well, I think I always thought that, and I'm pretty delusional anyway. So, but there was never anybody like I started riding at a hunter barn in like 1990, and there wasn't this sort of chorus in the background like there is now that says, "Oh, this is a terrible life," or "You'll be poor your entire life," or there wasn't that like social media noise telling people they shouldn't do it. Your parents said you shouldn't do it. That was pretty common.
This is
But
true.
our riding instructors and the people, the adults that we were all around in these show barns and stuff, they were like, do it. Don't be like us. Don't show on the weekend. They're like, run away and be with horses. So we had bad influence from the start. And the only people telling us no were our parents. So, like, what was going to happen? So I called myself a professional from a very young age because what else was I going to do?
Yeah.
And I actually didn't come from a background where college was an option until I was kind of too old for that like level of focus that would,
Mhm.
like SATs and stuff like that. I didn't do that. I went to an event the day of the PSATs because I had a better shot at anything with horses. Like I was, in the gifted classes and stuff like that, but it didn't matter because college wasn't on the table. So I didn't worry about it. I just rode horses. And I guess kind of the things I wanted to do, I wanted to write books and I wanted to ride horses. Those were the
Mhm.
things that I was good at doing,
Yeah.
basically. There's a
That
lot
was
of
your
stuff I
passion
can't
from the
do.
beginning.
Those two things I can.
You knew your talents right from the start.
Yeah, they were pretty identifiable. It's like, wow, she really can't do math. Gosh. And I
And
remember I had a ninth grade history teacher was like, you were so good at history. And I was like, great. I don't know what that's going to do, being good at history.
I do think that that goes hand in hand with writing. They would always say growing up, you're either really good at math and science or you're really good at English and writing and history.
Yeah.
It seems to be one or the other.
Yeah. It's that left brain, right brain thing. Like, I don't know if that's real, but yeah, it's like being left-handed or right-handed. And
Yes.
I came from a very like reader now my father i- is and always has been a rocket scientist, but we come from a
Right.
very book-heavy background. Like he used to I have all these early memories of my dad with his sci-fi paperbacks. So even though he was a scientist, he's still extremely into fiction and and nonfiction. Every year I buy him a big, huge new space program book and he reads the whole thing and he sends me texts about it. So
That's
he's both.
incredible.
I'm one.
So you've had this in your blood. This isn't
Yeah.
just a hidden talent. This is something that's really always been in you. You know,
Hmm.
I imagine, tell us a little bit about some of those different roles that you've had in the horse industry, because I do think a lot of those different jobs that you had and being an eventer growing up have probably influenced a lot of the books and stories that you write now. So just give our audience a quick little overview of what some of those jobs were.
Okay. I can work backwards if you want.
Okay.
I've been an exercise rider at the races in New York in Aqueduct and Saratoga. I have been a mounted officer in the New York City Parks Department based in Central Park, but I've ridden in all five boroughs, I think.
Very, very cool.
I've worked in breeding. I was a manager at a British Horse Society facility that also catered to tourists in Orlando, Florida. I have started young thoroughbreds. I've been a working student for five-star eventers. I've been a personal
Oh,
groom for five-star eventers.
really?
Um, yeah, it goes on. Uh, Part of it was I moved to Ocala to be a working student when I was 18, I think, or
Okay.
19. And there was such an embarrassment of riches, where I was working for an event writer, but there was so much going on in that town and so much I wanted to learn about. So I said, okay, now I'm going to go work for somebody in breeding and I'm going to really learn
Hmm.
about breeding because that's something a lot of people will never experience.
Yes.
And then I wanted to go and learn about how thoroughbreds are trained. So I went and started long yearling thoroughbreds under saddle. So it's like this big curiosity. And then easily bored was another thing. And then it was all right there in front of me. It was like a buffet, could try anything. If
Yes,
you didn't
and
like a job in those days, you probably still can, but if you didn't like a job, you got in your car and you left and you went and found another job the next morning. So
it's
it worked
true.
out really well for me because I'm a big quitter.
Well, I don't know if I would say that exactly based on the career that you've had, but I do think it's so common in the horse industry. It's so hard to make it in the industry with just one job. And it's funny that you mentioned you get bored easily because I always found that with myself even too. I worked at probably 2 to 3 different barns at a time growing up
Mm,
because it
yeah.
was like you either couldn't get all the hours that you needed at just one or you just wanted some variety. So I would teach at one, I would do barn work at another, I would just feed in the mornings at a third, and you just find a way to make the day not feel so monotonous.
I do love that. I love that like journeyman equestrian sort of journey. I used journey twice, sorry. And I do like because one I always kind of hated like you get to the barn and you feed and you do the morning chores and then you eat lunch and then you've got to go back and do everything in reverse again or do the
Yes.
same thing over again. And I love like, oh, well, I'm just gonna leave for a while. Maybe I'm gonna take a nap. Then I'm gonna go to another barn and do something completely different. I think that's a really good way to diversify your education, but
Yeah.
also stay interested in this game because it becomes a slog so quickly,
Hmm.
where you all of a sudden you're like, what am I doing? Well, you're
Yeah.
doing what you love, but it's really, you're just in such a rut that it's hard to remember.
It's
I
so
have to take a
true.
lot of vacations for that same reason.
That's not always easy to do on a
No,
on a barn manager or a horse person's salary.
no, no. You gotta find what works for you. If it's, if you can get one of those tents that you can put in the back of your truck,
Yeah.
go sit by a river for a day.
It's true. It's funny I was a live-in barn manager for over 7 years. And when me and my husband would go on a vacation, 9 times out of 10, we would leave the farm and book a ranch vacation. So we would just go from our farm to a ranch with a completely different landscape. But it was nice because there we could just ride. We didn't have to do any of the
Yeah.
work that I would have to do day to day at the farm. I imagine working across, so many parts of the horse industry. It seems that so many of those experiences, like we've said, have inspired some of the stories that you've drawn from and have written about. At the time when you were working all of these different jobs, did you ever imagine or think to yourself, I'm going to write a book one day, or this story is just too good to not be turned into something?
I don't think I ever anticipated writing horse books. I don't want to rewrite history or anything, but I don't think that was an expectation. And
Mm.
one reason is that I wanted to write adult fiction and I wanted to write more like contemporary literary fiction because for a long period of time, that was all I read. And I'm a little more diverse now. But there's no market for it, right? Like nobody was publishing adult contemporary fiction about horses. There was the Saddle Club, which was very important to me. And there was Thoroughbred, which was very important to a lot of people, and Heartland, and all of these series for middle grade and teenagers, and even little kids like Pony Pals. And then
Yeah.
it was cut off, and you weren't allowed to read horse books anymore. There was no such thing as adults who ride horses, apparently.
That's a
And
really
that has pretty much continued to this day.
until you came along and solved that problem for us. It's a good
Yeah.
point because, it almost goes back to what our parents probably hoped of us when we all first got into horses that, oh, it's just a phase, every
Yeah.
little girl wants to take horseback riding lessons or go to pony camp. And I think oftentimes people expect that we will eventually grow out of that. And it
The
seems as
publishers
though
are in on it. They're with our parents.
it's
You
true.
unveiled the conspiracy. They were like, we gotta take these girls and we gotta get them into marketing classes and we gotta put them in offices.
Yes, perfectly trained to do exactly what we want them to
Yeah.
do.
How many times do you talk to somebody and they're like, so and so that I work with used to be a horse girl. What do you mean used to be? What's she doing now? What's going
Yes,
on?
I think we have more recently reclaimed that
Yeah,
identity as something we can all confidently own as
absolutely. Mhm. Yeah. Well, that was when I named my romance series Ocala Horse Girls. And then somebody said, well, is it about teenagers? I said, no, it's about 30-year-olds.
Interesting. Well, and it's funny too, because I think unless you are a self-proclaimed horse girl, you don't understand. I mean, I'll be in my 60s still calling myself a horse girl, I'm sure. You never really grow out of
Absolutely.
it.
No, horse girl is a fully inclusive, gender neutral term that means that you are
Yes,
super into horses. And that's all. That's all it
1000%.
means.
Yeah. And we have to own it with pride.
Absolutely, we do, because we were born this way. No matter how hard some of us try to fix that in our brains and write 30 books trying to figure it out, it's stuck in that groove. I can't change the record.
Nor should you, because clearly it's working quite well.
It has not always worked.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because there is a part of your story that every time I go back and read about your career trajectory, it's one of the things that always sticks with me. I know after your many different jobs dabbling in the horse industry, you went on to have your own thoroughbred farm. Was this, and I know it was Central Florida, so would this be Ocala at the time?
It wasn't actually. It was closer
Okay.
to Orlando because we both
Okay.
had jobs in Orlando.
Got it. Okay.
So it was, it was a commute to work after you take care of your horses, come home,
Yeah.
take care of your horses. It was really funny because we had a pond and the pond had an alligator in it. And if you got home really late and you needed to feed the horses in the pasture by the pond, we would take a flashlight so we could figure out, because their eyes reflect, right? So sometimes he'd be out by the gate.
Okay.
And so we would shine the light, like, where's the gator? So we knew where to walk through to dump the feed.
So you were actually looking for the alligator as a guide. I thought you were going to have some horror story about how it like chased you out of a paddock
No,
one time.
in all my years in Florida, I don't think I have any horror stories about alligators. They're fine. It's fine.
That's what most Floridians say. It's us New Jerseyans and people who live out of state that are freaked out, I think, by the reptiles.
I'm
You guys
freaked
are
out by
used
your
to dealing with
empty
them.
water. Why do you have swamps with nothing in them? So strange to me.
It's true.
What are they for?
I guess torrential downpours and our crazy hurricane season. I wish I could tell you.
All the hurricanes and none of the gators. Tragic.
It's true. It's true. Okay, so at this time, you and your husband are running a farm in Central Florida, close to Orlando. And I know right around 2008 was a really difficult time, which seems to have triggered a big turning point for you. I would love for you to talk us through that time in your life. I know you were working for Disney and unfortunately you were laid off during the financial crisis, and that
Mhm.
resulted in you guys unfortunately losing your farm. I would love for you to take us back to what you guys were maybe thinking at that time. I think oftentimes when people are faced with a huge challenge and life change like that, you can either grab the bull by the horns and do something incredible with it, or you can kind of always live in that feeling of, how am I ever going to dig myself out? So I would love for you to talk us through what you guys were thinking and feeling at that time.
Well, when something is clearly going colossally wrong, I am a planner. I am a chaos wrangler. Toured an emergency operations office a few years ago, and I was like, oh man, this is a missed calling. And so while there were many times when I didn't react correctly, at the same time, we were able to look at the options that we had, look at the things that we maybe had neglected and the interests that we could pursue outside of farming and leverage whatever contacts we had. And what that ended up looking like was somebody that I was working on what would become my first novel. And I was talking to some thoroughbred trainers in New York at the time because there were scenes set at the racetrack in New York. And I wanted to have this, on the ground sort of perspective, which is really what all of my books have turned into, where they're almost reporter style.
Mm-hmm.
If I wrote it, it exists, or it existed when I wrote it. So I ended up we both did. We went and worked for them at the racetrack. We went to New York and I started riding horses, and my husband learned from the assistant trainer how to run the shed row. So we just refocused. And it wasn't easy and it wasn't pretty and there was a lot of tears, but there was no point in staying and trying to do the same thing over and over again, or move back to an apartment in Orlando and lick our wounds. We just had to move forward. Um, and so part of it was, we were living in, by then, social media generation. I was talking to people on Facebook. They were contacts I might not have been able to make otherwise.
Yes.
And I think that we can be really grateful that we have the ability to network with people that have absolutely no connection to us and get these opportunities. So we took it and we just shifted everything. We had already lived in New York City before. We loved New York City. So it wasn't really a culture shock for us from that perspective. And, we knew how to find an apartment and get our kid into school and all those kinds of things. But it was a really worthwhile change. It changed our whole lives. So
Yeah.
even when we eventually came back to Florida, we had done it with the knowledge that we had tried this big new thing and we had emerged on the other side like new people. It was really
Yes.
valuable. It was incredible.
Yeah. Do you think it took making such a big life change and pivot to realize that? Or do you think you would have eventually maybe found your way if you had stayed? And I ask that because I think oftentimes people are afraid to take a big risk like you did.
No, I think going to New York changed everything. I think it showed the depth of what we could do, both individually and as partners. If I had stayed, would have we would have, I don't know, gotten another apartment and I would have kept working at Disney and I would have had a great career at Disney. I'm not, because I did go back later, like they rehired me, which was very nice. But it would have been, I would have been one of my friends that I see on Facebook that's celebrating, 15 years or 20 years with Disney. And that's great. And I'm excited for them. But I'm also really glad that I went in a different direction. So, and
Yes.
I know I was happy there and I would have stayed there just being happy. But I needed,
Mm.
sometimes things have to hurt.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to go through a little bit of adversity.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes you need that big push to finally push you into maybe what you were always ultimately meant to do. I know
Yeah.
you mentioned you were working on your first book even before you moved. Once
Hmm.
and it sounds like once you moved to New York, that's where you ended up finishing your first novel, The Head and Not the Heart.
Yes.
How long were you working on this before it was finally ready to publish?
Oh, a couple of years,
Okay.
which is, people will look at the width of that book and the size of the typeface and say a couple of years, but that's how it works. You delete a lot. You go through a lot of iterations. Even with something that I write now, I will usually rewrite it 3 times. So it still takes time.
Wow.
And, I didn't work on it a lot of the time while I was galloping and working because it was an incredibly grueling schedule. You're getting on the subway and you're going out to Queens and getting on horses and then going home again and picking up your son from school. And New York City can be just the transportation length of time,
Mhm.
the walking and the sitting on the train can
Yes.
be a huge time suck. The bonus is you get to read while you're doing it.
Good point. You have a lot of downtime, although it's active downtime. You're not just
Exactly.
sitting
Yeah.
around, but
But those commutes they're long, but yeah, you get a lot of reading in. And so it wasn't until really tough after I quit that job and I was staying home and I focused on it that I was able to complete it. And
Mm.
then, during this period of time, something that I forget a lot is that what really started my writing career and let me finish this book and let me find readers for this book was that I had a blog. And
Mm.
I had been running this blog since 2007 or 2008. And so at
Wow.
this point, we're into 2011. And
Okay.
this blog has thousands of followers. It's getting quoted in like print magazines at times. And
Amazing.
specifically, it's about retired racehorses and retraining horses from when I had my farm, but also backside life from when I'm working at Aqueduct. So I'm able to show people, hey, here's what your horse's life was like. Because that's a
Yes.
wall, right? People don't get to go behind that curtain. So it
Yes.
was really interesting for me to say, hey, guess what? I'm going to go and work at the track and I'm going to tell you everything. And I'm going to take pictures and I'm going to post them. People loved that. It was great.
Yeah.
And it, once I stopped doing that, I was able to put all of that real experience and those real tears into that book. And then I was like, great, I have a book that has no market because publishers don't publish adult equestrian books. And that is how we got to self-publishing.
Yes, I'm curious to learn more about self-publishing because I imagine even for young aspiring authors, it seems as though that could be a pretty smart route to go, at least while you're maybe building up your audience. So, would you say self publishing is pretty common in the industry? And looking back, it sounds like it was your only option at the time, but is it something that you would recommend for maybe a young and up and coming author?
So, a couple of things. The first is that when I started self publishing, it was what is commonly referred to as the gold rush, which means that people had Kindles and nothing to put on them. And so you could put a book on Amazon for 99 cents and somebody was going to read it. And the second part of that was that I had readers, right? I had my blog readers. I had people that really wanted to read something I had to say. And then I had no money. No money. I had no furniture. And so I couldn't, I even had some publishing contacts at that point just through my son's school. And I couldn't go through that 2-year rigmarole before I got a couple $1,000s for this novella. If they wanted it, I needed money right away. So it seems like a great option because I had an audience base that was waiting, because the market was just looking for books, any books, and because I needed a check in 90 days. So
Yeah.
when it comes to should people self-publish, it's a really more of a personality thing than I think most people realize.
Okay.
Can you market yourself? Do you like marketing yourself? If you don't like it, can you get over it and do it anyway? Which is kind of where I started out. It's not that I love marketing, although I leverage things that I learned as a self-publisher into corporate marketing positions for large companies because of course I did.
Yeah, and you kind of been through it and you tried it yourself, so you figured, okay, now I'm in
I
a
had
good
to learn everything, right? I had to give myself a
on it.
thorough education so that I could pay my rent.
Yeah.
And so there are so many tools available to you, but you have to be willing to get your hands really dirty and not complain about it and just do it. Otherwise, no one is going to see it. And that's more true now than ever. People are dumping AI written books on the market every single day, and there's no way to differentiate your book from that 1,000 books without putting in the effort of a really good cover and a lot of readers who are excited to, like that you've marketed to that know who you are, and that's that personal brand, and you're putting your daily life on the internet and stuff like that. Like it's complex and it's really messy, and I don't regret any of it, but man, a lot of my personal life is on the internet. And that's what it took.
Yeah. You need those
So that's
connection
what
points.
when I say it's a personality thing, it's like a lot of writers say, "Well, I just hate marketing." Like, "Well, babe, that's the job.
It's true.
I am so sorry. You're just gonna have to find another route,
It's true.
Yeah,
It's true.
self-publishing is building a brand and selling your product at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
And it sounds like you did that even before you maybe kind of put all the pieces together to formulate it into what we would now call as a strategy. And
Yeah.
so you mentioned you launched your blog, around 2011? That really is what I would call like the golden age of blogging. I think
I
that
launched
was
my
the
blog in 2007
That's right.
on
So even
Blogspot.
before blogs were really like a big thing, but I think in that
Yeah.
time period, so it's funny. I look at all of these big course creators now, and they're all the ones who started their blogs like between 2009,
Yeah.
2013,
Can't replicate
cultivated
that.
that audience. You couldn't do that in the same way today as you could back then. I don't know what the equivalent would even be now, maybe just launching a personal brand and sharing
Yeah,
day in the life videos on Instagram and TikTok. That seems
absolutely.
to be what does really well now.
Mhm.
But it's so amazing that you cultivated this community before you even had something to sell to them, because I think that's one of the most genuine ways to kind of build and grow, kind of build what we would call that know, like, and trust factor. And then you say,
Mhm.
hey, if you're enjoying this free content, here's a little bit
Yeah.
deeper storytelling that you can buy into.
And, for people who either aren't comfortable with being perceived as a person or who want to write or create art or whatever, and they're not comfortable asking for money or they're not ready for feedback or things like that, blogging for me, you could do it you could do it with Instagram and captions now. There are options out there, but blogging for me ripped the Band-Aid off of some people aren't going to like what you write. And some people are going to be mean. So that I see so many first-time authors come out and get their first bad reviews, and they never put anything out there before, and they're devastated. And for me, like, I have always reacted very badly to feedback, and I've learned how to deal with it. But like when I started blogging way back when, before I put any fiction out there, that was when somebody could get nasty with me on the internet. I could be like, do you know what? Oh, their opinion actually doesn't matter at all. It doesn't affect me. And it cycles.
Yeah. You build up a little bit of resilience to it.
You got to get that callus.
Yes.
I think.
Yes. Well, and with blogs and even social media posts, it's probably not as big of a blow as when you put out your first big novel or your first piece of work that you're probably feeling a little bit nervous to launch anyway. And that was going to be one of my other questions for you. I imagine, you've had so many moments of probably some uncertainty in your life, making such a big pivot. When you eventually got to the point where you were ready to launch your first novel, did you feel very confident and excited to put it out there for the first time, or did you have to battle any of that doubt, uncertainty, wondering what people would think when you published?
Oh, yeah, both. Yeah, for sure. I am really confident and proud of all of my work. I wouldn't put it out there if I wasn't. And at the same time, I knew I was going to get some bad reviews, and that was very scary. But some of them were so silly. I can't even tear it. There were reviews.
Is there one that you remember?
There's two. I have two
Okay,
reviews.
tell us.
That one of them dates back to when you could reply to reviews on Amazon.
That must have been
old school.
Fun for you.
People did a lot of dumb stuff back then. And I didn't, as a rule, sometimes I said thanks, I was so kind or whatever. But it was set on a racetrack, right? The whole entire book is about racehorses and race people. And I referred to a horse's ankle, and that set somebody off. Horses don't have ankles. Horses have fetlocks. This person knows nothing. And I was like, wow. Okay. So I went to, like, I think the Blood Horse, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, like a huge Thoroughbred publication that's been around for like 150 years or something. And I found an article about Rachel Alexandra's ankle. Rachel Alexandra, a big time racehorse. And I was like, so sorry, you've never come across the word ankle in the racing industry. Here's an article which I think will help. And it may still exist on Amazon. It's just like,
we need to look.
What is happening? But that's going to be, for the rest of my career so far, that is the most common criticism that I have gotten, has been somebody being like, this person has no idea what she's talking about. I'm like,
really?
Literally everything I write is from my own experience. Like,
wow.
At this point, I'm wondering what I'm capable of making up, and I'm slightly afraid for myself. Like, is your imagination okay? And they're saying I've never done these things. This is madness. The other one, this one's quick. This is my favorite review for The Head and Not the Heart. Is this even a book? Mark.
No. That
I'm like,
it's
sure.
Gut-wrenching at the time.
No, it made me laugh. It really did. I was like, well, you paid for it and you read it.
Yeah.
And I have $2 that says the book.
So it's a win for you regardless.
Yeah. I mean,
it's very funny that someone came out and said, oh, she doesn't know anything about horses, when you quite literally launched like a whole category for equestrian books that didn't even really exist before you started
I think,
publishing.
and I think people silo so hard, because I recently saw, did not wish to see, and people should not tag me in these things, but somebody tagged me in a TikTok video about my book, The Project Horse, which is also it's about racing and retired racehorses and blah, blah. And this very large influencer, accomplished equestrian, was talking about how stupid my book was, because I said that there were not a lot of women working in the racing industry. She was like, what are you talking about? Everybody in the horse industry is a woman. Babe, respectfully. Be one of two women galloping horses at Aqueduct, and then come back and have a conversation with me. I would love to. It was just unnecessary. It was unnecessary to tag me in it. Thank you so much. It was very thoughtful. She did not tag me in it, and she was upset somebody tagged me in it, and I respect her a lot for that. But the comments in it of where people were deliberately misunderstanding what had been written and say they were never going to read my stuff was annoying. Like, it was just annoying. It was like,
Wow.
you just missed the plot entirely. Here
Yeah.
I am offering you an insight into an industry that you're never going to work in, and that's a plus. You shouldn't work in it because it's all men and they're horrible. And there's like 15 women doing our best.
Yeah.
It just it got under my skin a bit. And I fully respect the person who made the video, and it's whatever. But like, I just want people to, step out of their comfort zone a little bit and be like, oh, there's a lot of intricacies to the horse world. We talked on Adulting with Horses a couple weeks ago with somebody from Horse and Rider.
Okay.
And I asked her why she didn't wear a helmet. She rides Western. I just want to know. I was like, do you never fall off?
That will forever be the debate between English riders and Western riders.
And she was so funny. She's like, well, it sounds like you fall off too much. And I was like, well,
sounds up for a comeback.
I know. It was so funny. But it's like, I'll be like, are your brains better protect? How do you not have helmet on? Because I got in trouble at Aqueduct because we were fooling around on a pony one time, a 17-hand pony, and we were like taking turns riding bareback around the shed row, and we got in trouble because somebody saw us and reported us not wearing a helmet.
Oh my gosh. Of all the nefarious things that could have been going on behind the scenes at a racetrack, that's what you guys got in trouble for.
I know. And so it's just really funny. Like, there's so many of us and we all have the same purpose, and we get the wires crossed so frequently as, we each attend our own little service.
Well, you've shared some insight into what you've experienced on the social media side of marketing. It hasn't always been butterflies and rainbows at times. I would love to know, over the course of your many years self-publishing, what are some other things that you did to market your books that were a huge success, and maybe something that you tried that was maybe even a total flop?
Well, I think, successfully speaking, the best thing I ever did was start going to expos. I started going to Equine Affair when I had maybe 3 books out, and Taperton Equine Books invited me to come and do a couple of hour-long signing spots. And over the years, that turned into Jean, the owner of the bookstore, calling me and saying, hey, do you want to go to Kentucky 3-day event? It'll just be you and me, and I signed for 4 days straight and never leave my table. Getting out there in person. Not everybody is online. I know that's hard to believe, but there's a lot of really healthy, smart people who are not online all the time. And a lot of horse people don't have really like great retail access at the same time too. So you kind of meet them in the middle. You go to these expos and you meet all of these great people you never would have reached otherwise. And then you meet all of the awesome horse people who are also running businesses. And that's been one of the great gifts of my life. I think I met you at Equine Affair.
Yes.
While talking to the ladies at Ready Note, whom I was introduced to by Heather before we had a podcast.
Oh my gosh.
My whole life changed because of going to Equine Affair.
She's the master networker for all of us. She helped me make so many early connections when I started Farm and Fur. She's incredible.
I think if all of the like equestrian business women had to get together and sort of elect a president, it would be Heather, because she's the glue that holds all of us together.
Yes, she should have started some sort of networking for equestrians. We're gonna have to talk to her about that. She would be amazing at that.
She'll tell you it's American Horse Publications.
In all her spare time.
Yeah, in all her spare time.
Well, I love that you mentioned you had a lot of success with in-person events, because I think sometimes people are afraid to maybe make the investment into traveling to expos if they don't live close, and they think that they can just do everything through social media, which can be such a great tool. But sometimes you need to diversify that a little bit. And I think anytime you get to meet your audience in person, you can just develop such a stronger relationship. And like you said, even just meeting other contacts in the horse industry can be worth the trip.
It's incredibly valuable. Because yesterday I had a promotion post go up on Instagram from the Links bookstore because I'm going to do book event with Tick Maynard there in March. And I wanted, to work that algorithm. So I was messaging it to just everyone and posting, and just messaging like, hey, shameless request. Can I get a comment or a repost or a share to your story?
Yeah.
I just want to get this out to as many people as possible. And I just kept thinking of people. And, sometimes it's somebody that you talk to once a year. But if they came to me and said, hey, can you share this? Be like, of course I can.
Yes.
So it's not like a pull on your time or a demand on your resources when you make friends in the industry. You're literally just making friends with people that you might see once a year, or they might be able to collaborate with on something. You don't know what it's going to be. And it's really been a game changer for me. It's probably why I have stuck with this particular branch of my business for such a long time, why it's stayed equestrian. I didn't move into anything else really seriously is because I love the people in the industry I'm working with. And every year I meet more people that I love and I want to work with. And I don't think a lot of people necessarily go, oh, an author would definitely want to work with, a marketing director or a, graphic designer or somebody who makes t-shirts, but we all can work together and it's really, really fun.
It's true. We all have that foundational bond of horses and we all bring our own different spark of creativity. And I think anytime when you're working in a niche industry, you kind of have the passion for it at the root, and then you just have that instant connection point. And it doesn't matter if you do something completely different than the other person. You just need that one through line to bring you together.
You have the one through line, and then you can feel the positive energy when somebody is somebody you can work with.
Yes.
Because I can say, well, you go to Equine Affair and you're going to meet all of these business owners and 90% of them are going to be female. And somebody might go, oh, that sounds terrifying. And it's like, no, you're going to know which ones are awesome and great to work with. And the women that are great at community and fostering these relationships. I think the average person met me, they probably wouldn't be like, oh, yeah, Natalie. Now, there's a girl who always has your back because I'm super self-centered. I work alone. The entire wall behind me is my work, has my name on it. But I put myself out there for folks all the time because you're great. Who wouldn't?
Yeah. And if you're not confident about yourself, no one else will believe in you more than you will believe in yourself ultimately. At times in your life, you will need maybe someone to help give you the push that you need in the right moment. But ultimately, you have to be your biggest fan because no one else is going to do that for you.
Yeah. Or if you can marry somebody who's your biggest fan.
True. You
Super
could have a
helpful.
good cheerleader.
Yeah.
and a good support system.
Yeah. You do what you got to do,
It's true.
Store-bought is okay too.
True. So you have traveled and set up at these expos, marketing what I now know is coined the Ocalaverse that you have created, which I love that term. And you have really created this world by writing series that combine characters across the series. How do you even begin to approach something like this? When you started the eventing series, for example, did you know that that was going to be a series, or do you start with one book, fall in love with the characters and the story so much, and you're just dying to go on and keep building this world for them?
Yeah, I wasn't really dying to keep going with eventing until like the 5th book.
Until the 5th book?
Yeah, because I existed in a world of standalone novels because that's what I read. I didn't, most adult fiction isn't written in series, right? Genre fiction is. Mysteries can be 30 or 40 books long. Fantasy series, very common. Thrillers, even one character you follow. And then novels are usually standalone. And so that was my mentality going in, was like, okay, I'm going to write this book. And then I'm going to write this book. And they were going to be different books. So I wrote Ambition and published it. And that one took its time. It really hit maybe 6 months to a year after it was published. And then it just started climbing, and it climbed for years. And I kept getting messages asking for more of this character. So it was probably 3 or 4 years before I wrote the second book. And I felt absolutely shoved into it.
Oh, really? So it was your
Yes.
readers ultimately who pushed you
Yes.
into writing the series.
It was my readers. They pushed me.
Wow.
Yeah. And I kept going, what am I going to do? Going back to the same person. Oh my God. And, now I probably have dreams about this person, about the characters in this book.
They probably feel like they're sitting right next to you sometimes.
Yeah. Like, go away. And it is, I didn't know so Eventine series is 8 books long. And that was the first one that I started the republishing process with Flatiron Books. And so we went back to the beginning and treated Ambition and each subsequent book like it was a draft, not a published book, not a
Mm.
finished book, but a manuscript we were going to revise together. We did 3 revisions on all 8 books.
Wow. That had to be
Yes.
quite the undertaking.
It was really difficult. I cried a lot. I'm a
Yeah.
big crier. I believe in crying. So I'm not mad about that. I think it's really healthy. But wow, did I cry a lot in 2024? I was so tired. And I didn't want to revisit books that I had written as much as over a decade ago. But at the same time, as I did it, I developed such an appreciation for the characters and the world and how it all played together. That I have in fact started writing another book in the Eventane series. And I think I'm going to just write a little bit every week and put the bare bones draft of it on my Patreon,
Yeah.
see what people think, which is how I
Ooh.
used to write my books. And then at the end, when we get to the end, then I'll take it down and incorporate everybody's great comments and write a second draft
Wow.
and see where it goes from there. Because the characters are they're so alive at this point. They're
Yes.
not going to stop dancing around just because I'm doing something else for a while.
Well, and soon enough, readers who are fans will soon be able to watch these characters come to life on the screen
Yeah.
because I know after signing with Flatiron, you're now working with Amazon Studios as the executive producer of what will become the eventing series
Right.
on all of our screens. So was the editing and revision process kind of the first step to, I guess, getting everything ready to go from the book to the screen? Or was that a little bit more of a standalone process?
The screen process is its own animal.
Okay.
Basically, we worked to find, we talked to a lot of people who had read the first 2 books in the series and had ideas because it can't be, you can't just take a book and say, this is a script now. It has to work for not just television, but like the arc of a streaming series. It's going to be 10 episodes and it's going to cover from A to B. And
Yeah.
the motivations are going to be different. The emphasis on things like a romance or a personal nemesis, which is great for Jules. Those kind of things will be emphasized a little more. Things that maybe I didn't get to until later need to show up immediately in a TV show. So it really is going to exist as its own interpretation, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't really done any writing on it, just to be honest with you. That's not to say I won't in the future, but the initial idea for it is more of an approval process than a collaborative process. Do you
I
know what I mean?
see.
Where a lot of people look at it and go, well, okay, what about this? And then the writer goes back and deals with it
Mhm.
because, you have to make a splash and
Yes.
really bring people in with that first episode.
Yes. And captivate your audience,
Mm-hmm.
especially bringing a niche world to a mainstream
Oh,
base of
yeah.
viewers. I imagine I can see how that will maybe have some fun challenges to tackle. I would love to go back a little bit further to when you started working with Flatiron, because, for so many years you self-published and
Mm-hmm.
now you have this amazing partnership with Flatiron Books. How did you get that partnership? What did that process look like?
It was an agent cold DMing me in Instagram.
Wow.
You have to check all of your messages, even the ones
Even the
that go into
message
spam.
message request folder,
Because
because I know a lot of messages land
I
there.
think it sat in that box for like 2 weeks before I even checked it.
Were you
Yeah,
mortified when you finally opened it?
I was terrified. Because, so I'm a skeptic. So I did like an FBI background check on this account and I was like, oh no, this is real. I have to deal with this.
Like, oh my gosh, my life is about to change again.
It was, you know, and so I was at a point, I was at a crossroads point. So much like I was, you know, in 2008, where I had to make a change. And this time I wasn't being forced physically to make a change, but I was being forced mentally to make a change, where I was on such a treadmill with these, you know, with self-publishing. A part of it is consistency. And I was putting out 3 to 4 books a year and I was tired. And I was losing. I was like, I can't keep doing this. This is not going to work. It's working great now, but I can't do this for 20 years. I could lose my mind. So I'm like, what's next? What's next? And I talked to some people and it felt like what was next was TV. And so I was working on the concept of a screenplay. I had not begun a screenplay, but I was reading some books about it and I was starting to get myself into like, okay, we're going to try this. And I was going to try to write a screenplay for Ambition. So then it came to me, you know, somebody came to me and said, hey, people are talking about your book. People in publishing are talking about your book. People in TV are talking about your book. Let's talk about your book. Let's get on a phone call. I'm like, okie doke. So I get on a phone with this agent and she talked for 45 minutes and I listened. And at the end of it, she was like, I know I've been talking for a really long time. Do you have any questions? And I was like, I don't know my name at this point. Like, questions.
You're like, I'm just sitting here absorbing.
I'm like, what is happening?
If this is real.
But it became a really fantastic partnership. And I am just, you know, she's my agent, my agents, because it's a whole agency of really wonderful women. And we have such a good time. You know, they're the kind of people that you can send a text message to, be like, I'm really upset about my book. And they'll call you and be like, get out of the tree. You're okay. Your books are wonderful. You really need that.
I'm sure you do. That's incredible.
And so we they set up this meeting, this Zoom meeting with Flatiron, and it was like the company. It's not a big publisher, but it's big enough. And then
it's a recognizable name too.
Yeah, I was absolutely shocked, because for the longest time it was like, there's some publishers that are interested. And then it was like, we're going to set up a call with the publisher. And then it's going to be Flatiron. I was like, Flatiron, what do they want with me? They were like, they put out like commercial fiction and like celebrity memoirs. What do they want? What? And I didn't know they wanted a venting series either. I thought they wanted Ocalaverse Girls because of romances. Right. And when they said they wanted a venting series, I was like, what? Wow. We're doing this? So yeah.
Would you consider the eventing series kind of like your baby now, looking back on it? Is that really like your flagship series that most people know you by?
Yeah. People used to say, well, what should I read first? And I'd say, well, what do you like? And now I just point them right to the eventing series. Yeah. Especially since, you know, it was something I tried to get away from for a long time, because I published the first one in like 2013 or something. And it was like my third book. And so I tried really hard to get people to start other things that I had written more recently because they're better. And so this solved all my problems because we rewrote it and it's 500% better than the first version. Now I can very confidently say, you can read Ambition first. And some people are still going to get halfway into it and be like, what is wrong with this character? I'm like, that's why there's 8 books.
You need to read all 8 to figure it out.
I mean, by the second book, you're like, okay, I think I'm obsessed with this person. And by the 4th book, you're like, oh, she's really turning out awesome. And it's the eventing came from me going, why are some people so insane? What is that? Why are there some people in the horse business, bless them, who are just bonkers? What is it?
It's true.
And so I decided to write one and work it out. Because then it went from, well, can a person grow? And what does that growth look like? And how do they change with their relationship to competition and to horses and all of those things and to other people? How does that shift as they age and they learn and they fall off and they have these experiences? So it really became like a character journey for me.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
one thing we talked about at the beginning of our conversation is that idea that you might not be an instant success right out of the gate, right? So you first published Ambition a long time ago, and it's taken years to get to the point where you are now, where the series is so recognizable and people are so in love. What do you think it is about the character in that series that kind of always has had people going back to it? Do you think it really is just following the characters through such an arc and a journey?
It's the relatability. It's
Yeah.
that somebody will, especially as the books expand, somebody will find somebody that looks just like them at some point. Some people say to me, I have to be the model for Jules. I'm like, well, that is a cross you have to bear. Or people, they'll say, oh, I relate so much to Grace, who's a character that starts
Mm.
out in her own book, Showbarn Blues, and then by Ambition, or by the Eventide series, she's in the second book as a major character. So, there's all these archetypal horse people, and we all just like find our role and and go with
We can
it.
say, oh,
So, but
that reminds
it's
me a little too much
relatable.
of me.
It's relatable for kids who
Mhm.
have a big dream, and it's relatable for people who, have moved on as adults and are looking back like I was insane, or they're trainers and they're dealing with students and boarders every day who, half make them crazy, half make them so happy they don't know what else to do. So, it's really the realism that I think keeps bringing people back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned too, you've now had the opportunity to go through all of those books, kind of revisit them and rewrite them. Is there anything that you see in your earlier iterations of the books that are maybe super different than the way that you would approach things now? How do you find your writing has evolved over the years, even just through, experience and now knowing these characters a little bit better when you do get to go back and revisit them?
I think I was already on a sort of skeptic's journey when I first started writing them, where I was questioning the status quo of competition and training and things like that. And by the time the revisions were hitting my desk, I was investigating R plus, and I had gone to clinics at like Equine Affair type events with, like Shauna Karish, who brought clicker training from marine mammals to equines. And I did find that some of my characters were more primed to move in that direction anyway. I thought Pete in particular was ready to move into that journey. And I was at a clinic at Tick Maynard's barn a couple weeks ago, and I walked out thinking, Pete wants a round pen. I feel this. So so my own, the way I've changed over the past 15 years has definitely has played more of a role into it, where I'm helping my characters say goodbye to some of the more traditional but less kind training methods they might have used. More emphasis on turnout. I added a little bit of that in as well. So just things that have really, I feel like, have changed in the horse world, as well
Yeah.
as, in my own way of thinking. From a writing perspective, we cut so from word level to sentence level to chapter level, we cut so much. And I don't know if my style will ever really evolve to where I don't repeat myself over and over again. It's just apparently who I am. But I was so angry. I did a revision over the weekend, and there was a suggestion to cut a chapter and put some of the pertinent information into another one. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm not doing that. I don't have to take all of these suggestions. And so I got to the end of the book, and then I went back and I looked at the edit letter itself, which
Mhm.
the email that came with it. And she mentioned in the letter, I think maybe you should cut this chapter. And I was like, oh, if it was important enough to go into the letter. So I went back
Yeah.
and looked, and I found one paragraph's worth of information, put it into the next chapter, and deleted the entire chapter. And I was so annoyed.
Wow.
Because you write on vibes, and
Yeah.
and you're like, this stuff is happening, but nobody's got time for everything that happens in a 24-hour period. Sometimes you just need the headline.
Well, and something I can relate to so much even just as a creative person, even in my design work, or even when I think about, it's funny, I'm like my own worst critic, even when I'm putting together, my own social media content for Farm and Fur. I think sometimes it's so hard to not get so wrapped up into your work where you kind of lose the forest through the trees. Have you found that having the publishing team go through all of these books with you has helped give you a little bit of that outside perspective, even though ultimately, you probably know your characters better than anyone?
Yeah, and I think it's a double-edged sword, and I think writers have to be really careful about writing at least the very first draft and maybe the second draft, or as many as it takes before you turn it into your editor for yourself. I've always kept my readers in mind, but it's easier for me than for most people because I know my readers really well. And when you have 30 books that basically all appeal to the same audience, and you've been getting feedback from them for years. And I have a Patreon with over 100 members, and they've been giving me comments on first chapters and first drafts of things for years. So when I write for my readers, it's easy for me, but a lot of people don't have that advantage. So you have to write for yourself. You have to say what makes me feel really good, what inspires me, what excites me. You have to get excited about it.
Yeah.
The thing that got in my head was writing The Jump. It was the first book I'd ever written on proposal, number one. But number two, that was going to an editor whom I had just worked with on 8 books. And I was writing things and saying, is this going to make it through? Why am I writing this? I feel like this is just going to get cut anyway. And it was really affecting me at a sentence level.
Wow.
And I had to work really hard to get out of that space. And all I can say is I had to work hard to get out of that space. It wasn't like there's a definable process. I just had to get over myself, and it was a long time. I listened to a lot of podcasts with authors. I had never spent much time listening to authors in the traditional publishing space, and so I started listening to them so I could understand how they interacted with their edits and how they interacted with their manuscripts before and after an editor touched them, and I found that really helpful, just learning from other people's experiences. So
yeah. One thing I was thinking too, as you were talking about partnering with Flatiron and even working with your publisher, I love that you mentioned that your publisher came to you. Did she ever give you any insight or indication where she was able to see or understand that what I would call the mainstream world is ready to be brought into the horse world or be immersed in the horse industry?
Well, that's this is funny. I think we're talking about my agent right now. And my agent came to me at the end of 2023, and she fully predicted like the horse girl style phase that is occurring right now.
Wow.
She was like, "Oh, everything is going. There's going to be like a big farm and nature and horse girl movement, and all these celebrities are riding now, and that's all just going to like come out in fashion." I was like, "Oh, okay, that sounds great."
You're like, I've been writing about it for years. Let's go.
It was fully trend spotting. It was incredible. It was, yeah. And when it comes to, part of this was instigated by the streaming service side, which is Lauren O'Connor, who is at Amazon Studios, and she loves the books. She's an equestrian, and she's loved the books for years. And so part of it too, I think, was her saying, now we can do a horse show. Like the world is ready for a horse show. And this was, when we had Martha and
Martha with her Frisian. Oh yeah. Oh, I see. Oh, at the Olympics.
Yes, at the Olympics. Covering, yeah. And so so the horsiness is having such a moment, and so Lauren and my agent Lacey and everybody at the publishing were like, okay, horses are about to come in a really big way. Let's jump on this. And I think that's great.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine?
That is
so
incredible. It's incredible. Like you said, the trend forecasting. And I mean, we just had Horse Girl Fall, and now it's the year of the horse. So all of these things are and it's funny. I of course, who doesn't follow Kendall Jenner on Instagram? Now I see her posting from horse shows all the time. She just bought a big equestrian facility, like an actual training facility, not just a farm.
Yeah, I just saw a clip of that on, I don't know, Jimmy Kimmel. And she was saying how she rides under a pseudonym, which is so fun.
Yes, I think it was Jimmy Fallon.
Because I would be really embarrassed at this point. if I went out and crashed through a beginner novice course and they're like, Natalie Keller Reinert, and all these people turn around, like, oh God,
You're like, I'm just here doing research for the next book.
the next book, the writer is
no
bad.
mind.
It's bad research. Genius.
My gosh.
Thank you, Kendall Jenner. It's the secrets of the stars. We can all learn from them.
It's true.
Do your
It's
worst
true.
work under a student. No, but I saw pictures of her jumping and she's quite a jumper. So that's really great.
Yeah. No,
Can't hate
I
that.
agree. I know. I see her on Equestrian Vogue all the time. She's, of course, stunning. So, now we are all excited to kind of experience this Ocalaverse and your characters and stories and writings from the books to the screen. When viewers and even readers interact with your books and your characters for the first time, what do you hope they will take away from these worlds and characters that you have created?
Well, I started writing them because I was asking questions. And so every book I would write, I would ask a question. Like I was saying with ambition, I said, why are some people like this? What is happening in their brains? And I think we all know what I'm talking about. And then, that question grew into, well, how do people grow? How can somebody adjust their brain chemistry? And then, when I'm writing The Jump, the idea for The Jump came because of the huge, uptick in basically celebrity trainer abuse stories. And I mean specifically abuse of the horse or abuse in an athletic setting, not like a safe sport situation, because I don't even know how to touch that. That's not for me. I can't go there. But we kept hearing these stories, and we still are, from big name trainers, people we trusted, people I trusted as a child. And we see video and photo and stuff like that. And I'm like, what is going on? How do you go from here to there? How do you go from a person who loves a horse to a person who does these things? And then we had some interesting discussions on adulting with horses, where I realized that when I was a teenager, I was totally guilty of treating my horse like he was a sentient motorcycle. I loved him more than anything, but I did not take his feelings into account. And so I wanted to look at both of those things. I wanted to say, what makes a trainer turn to abusive methods? And where is that moment between childhood and adulthood where we stop treating our horses as toys and we start empathizing with them and treating them like true partners? And I think some people never cross that line. And I think maybe some abuse comes from that lack of awareness. It's almost like a peaked in high school kind of situation where they just never move on from senior year. And you've got to get past your teens. And you've really got to get past your 20s. I'm begging you, But those are the questions. And I think if I have these questions, I know other people have these. And so when they read my books, I hope that they will see me looking for touch points where we can say, this is a way things could change, or this is what makes a person like this. And then they look at their world and they are hoping to find some solutions in their neck of the woods, in their equestrian community, or in their barn, or in their discipline. What can change? Or do I need to leave? Do I need to go do something else? Is this the bad place? And I also hope, that's really dumb, I hope they have fun. Because I do write the books to be really readable, and I don't sit down to write a lesson, and I hope nobody took away from that Natalie is writing morality plays, because I swear I'm not. But that is where the ideas come from, is from me looking at stuff and going, I wonder why it's like that. Yeah, that's,
And it is unfortunately, spot on with what we happening in the industry right now. And I've always found it to be so interesting that the horse industry does have these governing bodies, but the day-to-day training is still so unregulated. So you could be a beloved horse and rider pairing in the arena, but no one, unfortunately, besides the grooms and people working in the barn, really know what's happening in that day to day. And it really is up to the trainers and the barn managers to be better and upholding these ethics. So I do think it's so important to put a spotlight on that.
Yeah, there are so many competing interests. It's an honor system where there is a lot of have and have not financial situation, and the shortcuts have got to they've just got to look so just impossible to resist at a certain point
Yeah.
where you're like, well, what's this really going to hurt? What's going to hurt the horse? And so it gets back down to, why are you doing this? And what else could you be doing if this is not working? At the end of the day, and that's that peaked in high school situation, isn't it? Where it's like, well,
Yeah.
maybe you should be a dental hygienist. Like,
Yeah.
you could stab
Maybe
people in the gums.
the horse industry isn't for you. And
Yeah,
just
take out
because
all
you're
your aggression on people's faces.
find another way to release that.
Just tell them they're not flossing right and injure them.
Right.
That's a whole career.
And I think there's so much pressure oftentimes that trainers and riders feel when your income is dependent on horses, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to think of your horse as a means to an end. Like you said, they're your partner in it all.
And what is
at
the
end of
end?
day.
Is the end a ribbon? Why is that the measure of progress? That's
a very good point.
Means nothing. That just means you really like going to horse shows. So
well, throughout our whole conversation today, we've talked a lot about how you self-published at the very start, how you approached marketing from that perspective, and ultimately had that incredible, cold call DM in your inbox that, seemed to have changed everything. If you were talking to another aspiring author, what is the biggest thing that you would want them to take away from your journey?
I think I'd go back to the relationship piece. Certainly as an equestrian, I think our relationships are the backbone of the community. But even with as writers, finding people that you can collaborate with or that you can just be in an engagement group with and you can boost each other's social media posts, somebody that you can group chat with and, just put all your sadness out for somebody else to say, hey, I felt like that too, or I do feel like that, and it's okay. Writing is a very brutal career. It is mentally extremely taxing. You can spend your entire day at the computer and feel like you ran a marathon and you still can't sleep that night. You will get back feedback that will make you cry. You will get back suggestions from very nice people who are working on your book for money that will make you cry. There, every angle of it is hard and disappointing, but you just have to keep. If that's what you do, if that's who you are, then you just have to keep pushing through it. The questions of what am I going to do with this book? If you're writing your first book and what am I going to do with it? And who's going to read it? Just write it. Okay. Stuff is where it's going to go is a completely different journey from the creation of it. Completely different. And I hope that I have proven that it can have multiple journeys. You can do anything with it, but you have to make it, Yeah. And a lot people want to jump the gun all the time. And I understand it's exciting to think about where it's going to go, but until it exists and it's polished and it's a beautiful diamond, don't worry about it. Just make friends with other writers and watch and listen and don't put anything on the internet you wouldn't want on your tombstone, I guess. Pretty useful. I say a lot of snotty stuff, but it's fine. I stand by it. You have to be able to stand by it.
Rule of thumb. Words to live by.
Don't leave bad reviews for other people's work. Like, don't do that even as a human.
Yeah.
Because why?
What are you accomplishing? A troll.
Yeah. But if you are writing and you're like, I'm going to sort of make a name for myself by reviewing books or whatever, you're going to have to delete that whenever you start publishing, because this is a very small community and you're going to hurt somebody's feelings. And worse than that, you're going to make somebody in a business position mad because you're going to have ripped into something that they put a lot of effort into, and then you don't know what they're going to do. So just don't.
just don't, or do it in the form of recommendations of what you do love and what you
keep it positive.
Your audience will love.
Always keep it positive. Here's what I love. Yeah. Those are some sort of boring small town wrecks, but that's the fact of the matter. You just got to do the thing and accept that it's going to suck.
I mean, I think that's advice that really even any entrepreneur listening can apply to their own side of the horse industry.
And I think that is what I find very hard to explain to aspiring authors and even longtime authors who are asking, well, how did you get where you are? And it's like, it's because I'm running a business.
Yes.
That's all it is. I'm running a business.
Yes. And One thing you mentioned earlier that I just want to quickly touch on because I do think it's so important, and I find that a lot of business owners are afraid to do this. I love that you mentioned that you have a Patreon where you actually release chapters of your new books as you're writing them. And what I would translate that to now is how you see founders becoming influencers for their own brands and being so public facing and sharing kind of the nitty gritty day in the life. This is exactly what it takes to start, grow, evolve a business. And I love that you give your audience insight and opportunity to see like what the whole writing process is like, because you're inviting them along for that journey. You're asking them to be a part of it by giving feedback and critiques along the way, and then you're actually taking their feedback to create, the book that ultimately will become published. So I would say for anyone out there looking to start a business or grow a business, don't be afraid to cultivate a community by showing all of the nitty gritty and maybe not so glitzy sides of building and growing your business.
I fully agree. Patreon is the only place where I put the sad bits, like this was a really hard week or whatever. I don't know if they like that or not. They seem to, because they're still around. And I'm so grateful for my patrons, and all of their comments and their support have been just unreal. I don't know how long I've had it for, 6 or 7 or 8 years. And, they stuck with me whenever I was doing the new books, which I couldn't share with them. It was the first thing I'd ever done that was, done behind a wall, and everybody stuck with me, and I did what I could to try to make it a better experience for them. But I think maybe like 3 people unsubscribed, and all the time it's unbelievable. Wow. I believe everybody, who wants to make a business out of a personal brand, which is a great way to make a business. A Patreon is an amazing way to do it. I would say find 5 people, your mom, your aunt, your dad. My dad and my mom are both like on my Patreon still, because from the get-go, I was like, well, I just need a couple people to show that I have it. And then I just started using it and just posting now and then, like, oh, did you know I have a Patreon? And this is what I posted today. And so, for a while it was $20 a month, and it was sometimes I, sent it back to my dad, but, it reached a point where it's like, it's actually an important piece of my business now.
Yeah.
You just,
1000%.
It doesn't, if you don't think anybody's going to join, just ask a couple friends to join it. It's okay to ask people for help.
At least just to get the momentum going.
Yeah. It's just, you can paywall everything, so you don't have to put your guts out on main. I only put the good stuff on main. Sorry. That's how I want to be remembered. All good, all the time. But my guts are definitely behind a paywall.
So even beyond your over 30 books, people can also subscribe to more of your content through Patreon, which I love. Mm-hmm. So by the time our audience is hearing this conversation, your new book, The Jump, will have already launched by now. You told us a little bit about what we can expect from this new novel. Is there anything else that you want to share that we have to look forward to?
I think it's an amazing novel. I'm so excited to get it out there, because I think it reads beautifully. I think it asks serious questions. It gives an insight into what it is like to work as a working student in a top barn. It takes you from, Virginia to Florida. You're on the winter circuit. Some crazy Ocala stuff goes down. There's a beautiful friendship in it. I love friendship novels. My favorite author is Maeve Binchy. Her top book is Circle of Friends. I just absolutely love novels about unlikely friendships between women. And so this is, at its heart, a friendship novel. I think that people who have read it have already asked for a sequel. I don't know when or how that might happen, but I think people are going to absolutely love this novel, sort of as a new spin on something that I have discussed before. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to read it myself. Thank you so much, Natalie, for coming on and sharing the highs and lows of your journey. And I know we're all so excited to see where you go next. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.